Thank you very much. And as you say, UK Research and Innovation is well, it's 2.5 years old, but for some, it's still a relatively new organisation. The government funder for research, often better known by its constituent organisations, and in this area, the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council and the such like. I'm not actually a lifer in UKRI. I joined last year. Before that, I was out as a management consultant, actually, one of those hated professions, working really on health reform and innovation. And it's that sort of theme that has drawn me into UKRI. And I must say, I feel rather humble as a mere engineer speaking to an audience of biologists on a lifespan perspective on healthy aging. But actually, I'm delighted and honoured to have been asked, as I think, and as Llewellyn has really just almost alluded to, we need to address this from two sides of the coin, if you like, simplistically. And if I could, oh, sorry, someone's going to share my slides. If we could go straight to the second slide. But address this simplistically, really, as both nature and nurture. And I'll come back to how we do that later on. But firstly, a little bit about UK research and innovation. So our work on ageing spans really from cutting edge science through to the lifestyle and behaviours that will enable people to remain active, productive, independent and socially connected across the generations for longer. So actually quite a broad brief. And in fact, our cross-council forum on ageing highlights work from all 9 of the research councils. So any of you who are familiar might be surprised by that, but including you know, the Environmental Research Council, etc. And so whether that research is on cell senescence, so cell aging, or cutting edge robotic prosthetics, through to an understanding of human behaviours, and why we find doing the right thing so hard. Or put another way, many of the causes of chronic health conditions were actually fun to begin with. So they're really ingrained behaviours. So if I could have the next slide, perceptions about ageing are also important. And I'm delighted that sort of, Richard started off with his sort of life course hill diagram. According to the World Health Organization, what's needed for healthy ageing is a change in the way that we think about ageing in older people. And the lifespan perspective suggests it's not just about, if you like, them over there, but it's us, all of us, and all of the time. Aging populations, from a policy perspective, have probably too often been viewed through a lens of rising demand on health and care and welfare services. And it's true, along with living longer, there's been a widening of the gap between lifespans, how long we live, and health spans, how long we live healthily. And at the same time, there are also increasing numbers of healthy, active, older people with aspirations, skills, and experience, not yet ready to fade away at age 65, perhaps what some people would refer to as the young old. So part of what we're thinking about is the success that is our longer lives as an opportunity. And it's both, if you like, an opportunity for society, but actually it's also a commercial opportunity, and that is focused on some of that, because this is a demographic that holds huge wealth. Something like 75% of the nation's wealth is tied up in owned by older people. So if I go to the next slide, so that's what's behind the government's policy or for an aging society grand challenge. And you'll see the mission here to ensure that people can enjoy at least 5 extra years of healthy, independent life by 2035. Also with a challenging thing about reducing the experience of the richest and the poorest. What this is much more than just health and care, and represents a huge societal shift, with healthy aging encompassing financial, physical, mental, and cognitive health. And that means a broad range of influences. So, of course, there is inevitably the need to address the wear and tear associated with aging, and get the healthcare systems sort of properly focused on what's there. And some of the big data that David was talking about can be applied to what Llewellyn was talking about, to really understand how drugs work in populations after they've been approved and been through the trials. But increasing there's a focus on prevention, encouraging people to be physically active. You've already heard of some of the benefits of that. And then really helping them to remain active through things like the design of their homes, transport, and if you like, urban design and the way our communities are laid out. And then I would be wrong not to consider work in later life as well, not only giving a sense of purpose, but also greater financial security. And we could probably answer some questions on that later. So I suppose where we sit today, after sort of 6-7 months of COVID, is this still relevant? Well, firstly, I think the ambition for 5 extra healthy years was actually reaffirmed in the government's manifesto last year. Has COVID turned that on its head? In fact, I think because COVID impacts mainly on older people, it's unlikely to have much of a statistical impact on life expectancy and the people that we're expecting to be old in a decade's time. What it has also shown is the importance of arriving in later life in good health. And more recently, the government published the UK R&D roadmap, and that says we need to be even more creative and innovative to adapt to the new normal and to recover swiftly from COVID-19. And they say it's their duty to build a future which is greener, safer, and healthier than before. So sustainable health as part of a sustainable environment and sustainable economy. So if we go to the next slide, so far I've been talking at the high policy level of the Ageing Society Grand Challenge. Closer to home, I'm responsible for a part of that, which is called the Healthy Ageing Challenge. And you'll see the aim here in the blue box. So let me highlight some of the aspects of what we're trying to do. Firstly, it was clear that achieving a mission with a population level impact by 2035 meant that we had to think about impacting the lives of millions of people within a decade. And that meant a very different approach to previous investments in this space. There wasn't really going to be time for new therapeutics to come through, and unlikely to come through changes in the formal health and care systems, although some of what Lauren was talking about actually also adds real hope that there's positive benefits that could be realized within a decade. But that's also driven our focus on businesses, including social enterprises, to bring forward things that will help people age well. The statement "as they age" is also important in this. So what we can do to change the life course of people who are becoming old in 2035 means actually thinking not about the very, very old, who are the people who will be sort of at the front door of the NHS, nor about what Michael Marmot would be saying about early years of the really key years to set a population off on a good aging trajectory, but thinking about people, I'd say typically, from 50 plus, the young old, as I've said before, as our key focus group. That doesn't mean that all those other things are not important. They'll be happening in parallel, but that's the focus for what I'm working on. And that's also why our main research focus is on social and behavioral research and on research to develop design that will help innovators deliver great new services and products for people as they age. And I suppose compared to other programs that UKRI sort of fund, the investment actually is relatively modest. We're still at a fairly early stage. But actually what I've found is that through that early experience, the modest investment is probably about right to get things moving. It's not necessarily going to be the end result, but it will certainly sort of help create a movement. So how can this relate to counteracting cognitive decline and managing patients developing multiple age-related conditions, as the sort of calling notice for this meeting sort of, asked for? And if I go to the next slide, I'll credit Muir Gray, but it may well be others, that walking or more generally physical activity is better than any pill that you can invent to counter the aging process. Although I know that some of those working on senescence may beg to differ. Actually, we're working in a complex landscape, sort of as illustrated here. No one sector or industry, but there are some clear themes that we can work to that will make a difference. And there was an interesting debate about how you measure healthy aging in the group, the All Party Parliamentary Group that Richard mentioned earlier. Is it about disability-free life expectancy, which is clearly measurable, or is it about healthy life expectancy, which is more a perceptual thing? And actually, the conclusion was it's a little bit about both, because some people with impairments can feel perfectly normal and enabled if the environment is supportive of them. So we need to think about both helping individuals and creating the homes, communities, transport and the such like that will make a difference. And this is reflected across the 7 themes. In fact, what we've found is actually there's a huge interrelationship between the themes. So if you want to work on living well with cognitive impairment, you'll find that actually what you do in the home, how you create communities, even some of the stuff that Lauren was talking about, managing common complaints of aging. So here I'm talking less about some of the stuff that doctors would talk about, like heart failure and sort of chronic lung disease. I'm talking more about sight loss, hearing loss, continence, things that actually are the effects of conditions that actually serve to isolate, or if dealt with properly, enable people to take a full part in society. And I think that's a really important part of the piece around living with cognitive impairment. So while there's long-term work on therapies and the likes, there's a lot that we can do as a society to enable people to make the most of their lives. And I'll just finish sort of quickly say, I mean, my work covers 3 main investments. I've mentioned the research already. We're also partnering with private investors to try and encourage investment in this area for small and innovative companies. And our other headline investment is something we call Trailblazers. So these are large-scale projects intended to take innovations to scale. And we've awarded 7 of those. And for instance, one of those is an innovative design and construction agency that's going to build a new village that is dementia friendly, but not specifically for dementia people, on a site probably in Northampton. So it gives you an idea that there is a broad range of innovations. So if I could just go to the last slide. So in a nutshell, growing old is inevitable, but we're hoping that being older may not be what you expect it to be. Thank you.